Okay, welcome everybody, and I'm glad you guys could make it to the What's New in Sakai 20 session. I think you'll find this one pretty exciting because I know as I was putting the slides together with Derek, we kept finding stuff that we didn't know was in 20 that is, so it was pretty exciting. There's quite a lot of stuff that's new, so this should be a good session. So I'm Wilma Hodges, and I'm the Director of Training and E-Learning at Longsight. I'm also the Sakai PMC Community Coordinator. And Derek is my co-presenter. He's with Longsight. He's the manager of support services. So some of you may know him from Longsight monthly calls. If you're one of our clients, he does a lot of the monthly calls with folks. Prior to Longsight, he supported Sakai at Indiana University. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started moving through the slides. Feel free to ask questions as we go. You can go ahead and type them into the chat, and we'll try to address those as they come up. All right, so let me give you just some quick summary stats. So Sakai 20 is a pretty big release. There are a total, I did a count yesterday, so I don't know if this number has changed at all since yesterday, but there were 1,181 JIRAs associated with the Sakai 20 release, and 171 of those were feature requests. These are resolved features. There may be floating out there that are not resolved yet, but these are the ones that were marked as completed. So I'm going to touch on some of the highlights of the new features, but there's still a few that are in 20 that you'll have a happy little surprise when you find them. We won't get to cover everything in this presentation. So I'm just going to go through these one by one, and this is a little video. This is actually on the JIRA. You can rewatch this. There's a new default gateway page. So when you log in to Sakai by default, instead of sort of the old style gateway that we had before, you've got one that's been updated. It's a little more modern. It's got links to various things on the acknowledgement page. So you'll see that it's got a new about page with some information there. The features are a little bit more layout, and then again the acknowledgement page that we saw already, kind of a quick view of that. That shows all the various technologies that are used in Sakai. Now most institutions have their own gateway, so this may not be relevant for you, but it's nice for people finding the software more as a marketing thing. If they're running the vanilla out of the box version, this is what they see first. Another new item is in the avatar. This is throughout Sakai. This is the little, thumbnail user when you don't have a profile picture. So rather than the old style anonymous dot person, you get sort of the Google-esque, colored circle with the initial of the user. So you'll see that in a number of different places where the default avatar would appear. Now, obviously, if you have a picture, then the picture would replace the default avatar. In search, I don't know if you guys attended the session that Adrian and Earl did just in the prior time slot. They were talking about different web components, search being one of them. There's now a new search bar up here in the global nav. So it's in the same line as like the Bullhorns and the view site ads. So it's been pulled up here to be sort of a global type of search. So you can search directly from there. Bullhorns also has been before, when bullhorns were first introduced, there were the social bullhorns and the academic bullhorns, and a lot of people didn't use the social ones necessarily. They preferred to just activate one of them. So what we decided to do in talking with folks, and they didn't really see the distinction between the two. You could just have certain events right to it. So those have been combined into just a single Bullhorns, which displays both social and academic events or alerts, depending on which ones you have enabled. And I do see in the chat, what elements does search? Derek, do you know that off the top of your head?
I do not. I'm taking a look in Jira right now to see if I can find exactly what it's searching.
Yeah, I know there's a list somewhere, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Oh, Miguel is saying items that are in the site, lessons, resources, etc. Yeah, I know there's certain tools that appear in search, and there are maybe a couple that don't. Hopefully Derek will get that information to you before the end of the session. So the profile tool now has a name pronunciation feature. This is great for names that maybe the instructor might not, be able to pronounce very well. The student can record his or her own pronunciation so that that's available within the roster and other places where the profile information is surfaced. Some people, I think I heard someone was using it for like graduation so that the student names don't get butchered during graduation ceremonies. Assignments had a few little things added to it. Now, there's now a student profile photo in the assignment, so you'll see a little thumbnail of the student with their profile photo in the submission screen. This just kind of helps personalize it a little bit and let you kind of connect a student with their work, especially for online courses. You kind of get to know who the students are through their photos and the other things that they post in the site. Now, obviously, there is no photo if it's an anonymous grading scenario. So if you've made it anonymous, the photo does not appear. And someone is asking if the profile pic here is the official one or the student offered one. I believe it's whichever one you selected as the default. Is that correct, Derek?
Yes, it should be whichever one you have selected by default.
All right. There's also a progress bar in the student workflow. So instructors don't really see this, but when the student is submitting, they go through these different progress states, and essentially each state is highlighted as they go through it until you get to the end, and then the whole bar is highlighted. So it just provides a little more information, a little more clarity about the way to turn in an assignment and make sure that they remember to fully submit, because sometimes people will upload a draft but not actually submit it. So it just provides a little more clarity about that. Their users tool, this is an admin tool. There's a little bit of an updated UI for this. So you'll see that it provides you some hints, like if your password's too weak, gives you a little more information as you're putting in the information to create a new user manually. Now again, most institutions create users systematically based on information from your system. This would just be if you were adding an account manually, but it is a nice little thing for the admins if they need to create a quick training account or a demo account. Just makes it a little nicer. The statistics tool has a new user activity tab, and some of you who maybe have attended some of the teaching and learning calls or maybe some of the UX calls, this has come up a few times in those venues, and basically it provides more granular information about the activity that a user has done in your course. So you can pull up a report by user. This drop down gives you a list of all the folks in the course, and you can choose specific tools or all tools for that user and identify a date range, and it will give you the date and time stamp and then the event. And if you show more, these little show more buttons, when you click on them, it kind of expands to show you more details. For example, this one, the particular page that was read or visited was week 1. And the assessment, it was just called test, but if it were quiz 1, quiz 2, whatever. So it gives you more detail about that particular item. Yes, Western has been utilizing this for a while. This was a contribution from Western, so we're very happy to have this in the core code now. The statistics tool also has a student view. So traditionally this has been an instructor only type tool, but in 20 now there's a student view of it, which allows students to view their own activity. Now they don't get to see everybody, they can't run reports. It's only their own visits, average presence, and total time, counting presence in the site. So they don't get the full range of in the statistics tool, but it does give them a little bit of a snapshot, only of their own stuff. I see Dave going, what? They only see their own stuff, Dave. All right, so tests and quizzes now has a restore deleted assessments feature. I know that particularly with the revamped UI where you've got draft and published in the same screen, a lot of people have been deleting stuff. We've had sort of a rash of people deleting their drafts. So now you can go in and restore those things right in the UI. You don't have to put in a support ticket. You don't have to go, digging through the database. It's right there for the user if they inadvertently delete something that they didn't really mean to or maybe shouldn't have. So they can go in and restore those. And that's both for draft and published. I do see a question here about how long do the assessments stay in the restore tab. I don't actually know. I think it's indefinite. I don't think there's any way to set a time limit.
Yep, that's correct.
Oh, is that Derek?
Yeah, they stay there.
Okay, yeah.
And Christina coming to 19. Yeah, we're looking at backporting this restoration of assessments to 19.
Yeah, we've had a lot of folks ask about it in 19. And I see a comment from John, I hope it's called trash. Yeah, the initial JIRA did label it that, and there was already some existing work that EDF had done that they built upon to create this. And in their prior work, it was called Restore Assessment, so it kind of kept that label. But that would be an easy change to change the label in, a quick JIRA to rename something. Currently it's, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe message bundle manager. I'd have to check, I'm not sure.
Yeah. That would be another way to do it locally. All right. CKEditor Templates from University of Dayton. They've got quite a few templates that they developed locally, and they've contributed these back. So they're actually packaged now by default. And so if you go into the CKEditor to the little templates link in the toolbar, you'll get to choose from some of these different templates over here. So these have already been kind of configured to make the page look pretty in various different configurations. So these you can use, and you can modify it once it's in there, but it just kind of formats it for you. So, so those are in there by default. Dave is asking, can institutions make their own to place into the same area? I don't see why not. If the Dayton ones are included, you should be able to add your own. You won't be able to do it through the UI. You'd probably need to create some CSS and then have it somehow in the template. And I don't know off the top of my head exactly the steps you would take to do that, but I don't see any reason why you couldn't. Let's see, John is saying that it'd be awesome to share a repository of templates like rubrics are now. That would be a good feature request. All right, so moving on. And if I didn't catch all of your questions, we'll have time at the end. So I'm trying to glance at the chat every now and then, but if there's a burning question, let me know before we close. Now in the gradebook, there's a new column now for section. This was something that a lot of folks wanted to be able to see the section kind of persistently. So, so that's now a new option there. And also there's an option to suggest previous inputs. And what that means is if you type in a comment in the gradebook, for example, but it could be in other places, it's going to remember in the browser what your last comment was. So if you start typing something, it's going to suggest other entries that start with that same group of letters. So if you're adding a similar comment to many things, it can kind of make things a little quicker for you because it suggests those previous things for you. And this is throughout the system, but it's demoing here in Gradebook. The comments persist in the browser. So this is a local storage kind of thing. So if you clear everything out of your local browser or you go to a different machine, you're not going to see them. All right, there is a new full screen mode in Gradebook, which I personally was pretty excited about. I know we've had a lot of folks, comment on the fact that they needed a little more screen real estate looking at the columns and the rows in the gradebook, and it can feel a little cramped because there's some extra stuff there in the top that kind of bumps everything else down. And one way to help alleviate that feeling of confinedness, there's now a new full screen mode. So you'll see this, it's these little buttons over here, or its icon rather, in the right corner. This has already been expanded out, and then you can collapse it down to normal mode. But basically what it does is it hides all the global navigation. So all the Sakai banner navigation at the top, and then along the left-hand side of the tool menu, all that's hidden temporarily, and the only thing you see in your window is just the gradebook, the spreadsheet view. So it really gives you a lot more room than just the content area, which is what you've typically been restricted to. This is the same expand collapse option that is now in the new Grader UI, and that is actually one of these new things that we'll get to in just a moment. Another thing to help with the scrolling factor in Gradebook is you can resize columns too. So there's a property, and this is it here, to allow it, and you can set it to true, and then it gives you these little handles, and you can scrunch down the sizes of the various columns. Oh, and I see a question. Does that mean you would have to collapse it before trying to change tools, meaning the full screen? Yeah, well, you lose all the navigation when you do that. It's all hidden. So in order to navigate to another tool, yes, you would have to collapse the full screen mode. But yeah, the little handles will show up, and you can resize any of these columns as needed. This one is brand spanking new. It got in just under the wire for code freeze. There is now a message students from Gradebook option. Some of you may recognize something similar in a competing LMS. If you go to the drop-down menu for any given Gradebook item, you'll now see a new option here called Message Students. And then when you select it, you get this little pop-up that allows you to choose who you want to message. And right now you can only choose ungraded or graded or everybody. Hopefully we can add additional options to that drop-down menu, but this is what you have currently. And then once you select either graded or ungraded, it gives you a place to type your subject and your message. So this is kind of a nifty little feature. Let's see, Marty wants to know, do messages go out via email or messages system? You know, I'm not sure. Is Adrian on? Because he just created this. Derek, do you happen to know?
It should be email.
Email? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, it goes out via email.
And it does not support the CK editor.
Yeah, not right now. Hopefully
Yep.
be an improvement down the road, but this is just sort of bare bones for the first iteration. The podcast tool got a new UI. This is what the old podcasts look like, and I know that the text is really small. It's hard to read, but you get the idea. It's just sort of a big block of text that kind of blobs into the next section of it. So what they've done is make it a little bit easier to read by putting it into a table with some color-coded rows so that things are parsed a little more visually and it's a little bit nicer to read. So this is what the new podcast UI looks like. The top feature, which is a quick button to move to the top of the page. So I know in Sakai there tend to be a lot of pages that are really quite long, and scrolling back up to the top to go change something can be a little bit annoying sometimes. So this gives you a quick way to jump back up to the top of the page when you're at the bottom of any given page. There is a new OneDrive/Google integration. This integrates with the Sakai filepicker, so it adds the option to be able to browse, link, or copy your files in any tool where you're using, attaching a file or uploading a file that way. So you have kind of a tabbed layout as well. So these are your Sakai, files. So you can upload a file to Sakai, you can link to a website, you can basically URL, or you can select something from resources. But if you're using OneDrive or Google Drive, you can browse your Google Drive or your OneDrive resources and attach something there as well. And I believe that you can have both of these. So if you happen to be using both OneDrive and Google Drive, although that's a little unusual, you could actually do either or, I believe. Let's see, Katie wants to know, does the Google Drive option link to the drive file or make a static copy?
Should be able to do either one.
Either one.
Miguel
Yeah,
can probably
so,
pitch in on that, but yeah, I believe they can make a clone,
yeah,
a clone or a direct link.
yeah. Is the cloud picker per site or per user? When you go in for the first time, each user will be prompted to link his or her account. So like if I logged in and I go to the Google Drive, it would ask me to log into Google and it would associate it there. So then the next time I go in, it goes to my Google Drive and not someone else's. And yes, it does give permission based on where you put it. So Sakai handles all the permissions within the site. All right, in site info, this is another one that's relatively recent. This is a date manager or adjuster, if you will. So basically what it allows you to do is have one place where you can go to adjust a whole bunch of dates. So let's say you're rolling a course from one term to the next and you need to update all your assignments. You don't have to go to the assignment tool and open up each individual assignment to modify those dates. And expand out the tool in question and then update all the dates on one screen. So it just makes it a little bit quicker to go through and make those kind of mass updates and then save it. Now, I know that a lot of people want it to do it automatically and, bump everything forward 3 months or something like that. We're working on it. So that's coming. It's not there yet. But what you have here, I think, is a vast improvement because at least it's just one place and you see all the links and all the times. So, and Dave is asking if there's oops, I set the dates wrong. Can I clear them all? Well, I believe you have to save on this screen before you can move on. Let me see if it shows it in the little video here. I believe there's a save down at the bottom. Miguel's on here. Miguel, do you have to save or does it save it?
There is a save changes at the bottom.
Okay, yeah, there it is. So yeah, if you remember before you hit save, then you're good. If you've already saved it, well, you know, it's like when you save anything, you kind of got to go back and reconstruct. Shireen wants to know, how does that affect assignments that shouldn't be edited after posting? Typically, you can change the dates on something without messing up peer reviews and groups and whatnot. It's just if you're making other changes to the assignment, like changing groups around or changing the type of assignment. But changing the date shouldn't conflict with any of those other settings. All right, and Sakai Grader. I don't know how many of you were in the Grader session earlier today. We did a lot more in depth, so if you didn't see it, there is a recording. All these sessions are recorded, so you'll be able to see that recording if you missed it. But the Sakai Grader is the new grading UI for assignments currently. We're started there first. We're going to be branching out to other tools in the near future, but it essentially gives you a more streamlined grading interface where you can preview. It'll have document preview, and you can actually see the student file. You can also attach a private note that's only visible to the instructor. It does work with rubrics, so you can pull up a rubric if it's attached to the assignment. This is an image of the document preview. So you would preview the file over here on the left, and then you've got your grading options over on the right. There is, in the most recent version, actually an option panel that you can open up here to choose which side of the screen you want the grading panel to appear on. You can move it to the left or the right, depending. So this is an early mock-up. It's slightly different now, but this is kind of the general idea for the grader. So we're very excited about that. And in future development, we hope to incorporate other views, not just document preview, but document so that you can annotate comments directly on top of a file that you're previewing. So, so that is coming. It probably won't make it into 20, but it certainly will be in 21. All right, so here's our timeline for Sakai 20, and the branch was just cut on November 4th, like a couple days ago. So our target dates for RCO1, which is Release Candidate 1, is December, right before Christmas. Release Candidate 2 is in, late January, right before Sakai Camp. And then we hope for an RCO3 in mid-February. And that's, kind of moving towards a March release. In the last couple of years, this year and the year before, we were able to have a March release. So we've been doing pretty good about keeping to a 1 year annual release cycle. So we're hoping to continue that and have 20 out the door, at least the Dotto release out the door in March. And then hopefully, provided that we meet all those milestones, we'll have a .1 release in out there for May, so that people can who are maybe a little reluctant to upgrade to a .0 release because they're worried about the bugs and the most earliest version of something. The .1 will have a lot of those fixes, and people can, maybe check it out over the summer and have it ready to go for fall term. So that's the overall timeline that we're looking at. All right. So do we have other questions? I know there were a bunch and they were kind of flying by in the chat, so I was trying not to get too distracted so I could get all the way through the presentation. But I'm happy to go back and answer some of those if I didn't get to them. Will CKEditor 5 come with updates to Font Awesome? I think it does. I think there are some new, but I don't know if it's CKEditor 5 that has them. Derek, do you know?
Let me see real quick. I'll check.
I don't know if it does or not. I mean, CKEditor 5 is a totally different build to CKEditor 4. It's all modular. It's all separate web components. And in the Grader, I've used some Font Awesome 5 icons in there because you can pull the you can pull Font Awesome 5 in as part of a web component. Do you know what I mean? And use it in there, yeah. So, but as for using Font Awesome 5 across all of Sakai, I don't think we've got that on the agenda.
Okay.
For this year, basically. I've not seen it on the agenda anyway. So we're still on Font Awesome 4 point whatever it is, you know. But yeah, in web components, like I say in the Grader, we are using it, so we can mix and match to a degree without having to go through the entire you know, code base and update. A bit of a fuzzy answer, but you know, sorry.
All right, let's see. Are there ways the community can continue to help with the 20 refinement process? Absolutely. You can help with QA. You can put in JIRAs if you see things that maybe aren't quite right. It's still early enough that some of those, especially if they're classified as a bug, might still get into the .0 release, particularly with brand new features like the grader and other things that are, you know, right out of the blocks. So if you get those JIRAs in and we know about them soon enough, there's enough lead time to get those little tweaks in there. So yeah, definitely there's lots of ways you can contribute. So please encourage faculty to, you know, maybe take a look at master, see what's out there right now, and then if you find anything that you would like to see a little bit different, or if you find a bug, the sooner we get those JIRAs created, the better, because that way we can address them faster. Let's see.
I'll just add to that real quick, Wilma.
Mm-hmm.
So if there are some people that really, want to join QA, go to the QA calls. They do have it well organized over there about how testing happens within Sakai. And so it's not just like, because some people may say, well, testing Sakai, that's a really large thing to do. And it is a really large thing to do. But they really have a process over there about how that happens. And it's, sort of a divide and conquer, if you will, approach. And so, but they manage that process in the QA calls, and they'll be starting it really soon for Sakai 20. So if you're interested at all in that, please help out there. QA is the biggest resource that's required to actually produce a release. So meaning the release, a lot of the release time frame is around QA.
Yep, absolutely. So that's the way to make the biggest impact, I think, if you're interested in helping out with those QA efforts. I saw that Christina posted that we missed the awesome ability to import assignments as published. Yes, sorry, I like I said, there were a lot of new items in 20, so I know I missed a few. So if there are additional ones that I didn't include, like I said, it'll be a happy surprise when you find them. Because we were still cataloging up until today. Actually, we added a few more new slides of things that we found. Oh yeah, that's in there too. So a lot of new stuff. So it's going to be a really nice release, I think. And let's see, somebody asked if the resizable columns persist. Adrian, do you happen to know? Is that something that persists?
I believe if you log out, it's cleared, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. The resize. Well, you're talking about Gradebook, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Gradebook columns.
Yeah, and just the hiding of columns is persisted, not the sizing. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. There's a different JIRA that I didn't put in there because it was kind of hard to make a screenshot of something that was hidden. So I decided to just let people discover that on their own. But there is another new feature in the Gradebook about hiding columns, and the hidden columns remain hidden when you log out and back in. So that's a special bonus feature.
I mean, we can that can be JIRA, the column,
right, the persistence.
Column size. Yeah,
that would be a great JIRA to put out, so we can try to address that. All right, well, we are out of time, so I do apologize if I get to your question. Feel free to contact me if you do have additional questions, and I hope you guys are having a great day. So I will see you in the Sakai Grader, which is coming up next. Thanks, everybody.
Bye all.